Hello everyone, this is Brad Wood. Today I'm going to show you how to have custom tray menus for your CommandBox servers. Now, whenever you start a server in CommandBox, for every server you start, there's a little icon, and Windows shows up down in your system tray by the clock, and Mac, it shows wherever the heck it is that you guys have those things. I'm not a Mac user. If you are a Mac user, I did make it so tray icons are disabled by default in one of the recent versions of CommandBox due to some compatibility issues with the later versions of Java and the library that we use. You can still turn it back on. A lot of people say it still works for them. There's just some warnings in the console, which always confuse people. But the cool thing about that menu is that you can add your own custom icons to it, and they can do whatever the heck you want. A lot of these features actually came from requests from people in the community. And I don't know how many people are using them, but they really should be, because you can do a lot of cool stuff. So in its minimum, you can declare an extra item in the tray menu, and you can specify the label, which is what text shows up, and there's a whole bunch of options that can control what it does. So you can put them in 3 different places. There's a tray options array that can go directly in your server.json. So for a given server, let's say you want to have some custom options that show up for everybody there in your team that starts that server. Or you can put them in your server defaults, so all servers in your computer might have a tray option, like open the web root in VS Code or something. And then any custom CommandBox modules can also contribute their own menu items to the array just by appending structs to it. And for example, that's what the Fusion Reactor module does. Is it contributes its own menu item to that array. So labels, the only required thing. Labels, the text that appears on the menu needs to have a unique name. You can have an image. CommandBox will default the images based on what the icon is doing, or you can just specify your own PNG file. There's a disabled flag, which will make it so it's grayed out, so it doesn't do anything. It's kind of informational only. Items is an array that can have nested submenus. You can basically kind of nest those however you want to group menus, create your own groupings of menus. The action property controls what happens when someone clicks on the menu. So there's a bunch of kind of built-in options here. There's open file system if you want to open up a path on the file system. That requires you all specify the path you want to open. There's open browser, which will open up the user's default browser. And if you specify that, you need to provide the URL you'd like to open. There's a stop server, which stops the server. We already have one of those in there, so chances are you don't need to add another one. And then there's 3 different flavors of running just complete random custom things that you want to run. There's run, which runs an arbitrary native command synchronously, rather. This the command is specified in the command parameter. And so synchronously, when you click on it, it'll pop up a window, it'll show the output, and everybody waits until it's done, right? At least the UI does. Run async is when you want to run an arbitrary native command asynchronously. So it just kind of fires off in the ether as a separate process. And this can be for if you want to just open up a completely separate window, or you want to maybe just run a command that you don't care what the output of that command is. And when there's run terminal, which based on your operating system will actually pop open a new terminal window to run whatever command you want. And that terminal window stays open. So you can not only see the output of the text, but you can interact with it as well. So if you're running some sort of, shell script that might ask for user input, you'd want to use run terminal. And then we just talked about path URL and command. You can also specify the working directory of where you want this command to run, which could be important. Let's say maybe you're running npm install, and you need it to run inside of a specific directory. And then you can also override your shell for you crazy Unix people that have your Z shells and things like that. So this is what they look like. Open file system example, label open downloads, action open file system, the path to whatever the folder is that you want to open, and then specify an image. Open browser works pretty much the same. We use open browser, and we can just have a URL. So we can have an open Google menu item that whenever you click on it, it opens up Google, and it can use this, PNG image of a cat, because why not? You can, these are stored in your server.json, your config defaults. So you can obviously use your own system setting expansions, placeholders. So if you want to open up maybe a subdirectory of whatever the current server is, like, an administrator of some kind, you can use the system setting expansions. So whatever the current host name and port is will be automatically stuck in here for the URL. So you can make these as dynamic as you like. All right, let's look at these run examples. A simple run example, I'll demo these in a second. This menu item says, does the internet work? we use just a regular synchronous run, and we run ping-google.com. And I'll show you what that looks like when you run it. Run async. We have one that says math is math, and it just opens up calc.exe. So we don't need to see, there's no output in the terminal. We just want to just fire that off and it'll open up. And then run terminal. Here I have one that runs a box update the dependencies, and since we use run terminal, that'll open up in a terminal window. Here's an example that just runs something completely arbitrary. Clear temp directory, runs async, so it just fires off there in the background, runs rm-rf, runs that in the var temp directory. You should probably be pretty darn careful you get that working directory correct. Otherwise, you may delete a lot of something you wanted. And this is what it would look like to override the shell. This is obviously a Unix example. Submenus look just like this, right? We have a top-level menu, which is this top-level object in our JSON with a label, and then items is an array, and then we just nest those nested menus right underneath it. And each menu can have everything that a menu can have. So the other last thing, and I'll demo this as well, is you can override and you can contribute to some of the existing menus that are already in the little tray icon menu. So if you specify, let me actually back up a bit. So when the menus are loaded, they're kind of all merged together and overlaid. And so we start with the built-in menus that CommandBox has out of the box, right? Then we add on top of that any config settings server defaults, which are global to all of your servers. Then we add on top of that any tray options defined in the server.json. And then on top of that, any of the on-server start interceptors have their say, and they can just manually modify the array in any way that they see fit as well. So one of the menus that's standard with all CommandBox servers is called open ... That's the name, the label of the menu. And so if you have a custom menu called open ... is the label, then any submenus inside of it will be inserted into the existing open menu. It'll just find that menu and it'll insert those in. So you can override the icon, you can override the functionality, and you can override or add to the children inside of those core menus. So it kind of give you full control to screw things up and to modify those existing menus. The only way you can remove an out-of-the-box menu is if you use a custom command or a custom module in CommandBox that would actually delete items out of the array, which is entirely possible if you'd like. Okay, so I'm sharing a different monitor today because I wanted to be able to show the system tray down here, which I don't normally show when I do my screen shares. So here is my server.json for our example. This is my menu example server. And here I have a big old fat array of tray options. So these are all my custom menus here. I have a top level menu defined right here, which is called run examples. And then it has 3 children menus. So I have my does my internet work example, my math is math, and my update dependencies example, box update. It's also worth noting if you don't have box.exe in the path for your computer, this will still work because we will replace box with the full path to your exe just to make sure that it's found. And then I'm also overriding that default open ... menu, and I'm adding 2 special contributions of my own into it. I have an open downloads option, which opens up my downloads folder off my file system. I have a little download icon, PNG, that I got off of Google Images. And then I also have an open VS Code example, which uses run async, and it just runs our VS Code binary with a dot to open up the current directory. And this is also using a random little VS Code icon that I found on my hard drive for VS Code. So to test these, we will start our engines, our servers. Okay, here comes our server. Here comes the browser, but we don't care about the browser because we're not actually using it for anything. So, zoom down here to my clock. Here is our little Lucy icon that goes for our menu example server. You'll notice I have a Fusion Reactor menu in here already, and that's because I had the Fusion Reactor module installed locally. So that's coming from an on-server start interceptor that just appends the struct inside the array. I have my run examples top-level menu, right? And by default, there's no icon on this top-level menu. And you can see here, these first 2 run examples, it automatically used lightning bolt icons. This third one, CommandBox was smart enough to recognize that we were running CommandBox as the binary, and so it threw a little CommandBox icon in there for us. So, does the internet work? We click on this, and we get a pop-up, and our command runs inside of this. So, first of all, it shows us the process ID that's executing in case we need to go kill it or something. It shows us the command that it ran, and then we see the output of the command scroll by as it's running, and then when it's done, it lets us know what the exit code was. There's also a stop command button here at the bottom. It's grayed out now, but while my ping was running, I had the ability to click on that, and that will try to interrupt this process and kill it. So if you have one of these synchronous commands and they're taking a while to run, you can also try to stop it. Your mileage may vary. So this is what the synchronous run looks like. We get this little terminal window with the output, and then we can just close it when we're finished. Let's go check out our async run. So I'm going to go back to run examples, and we'll click math is math. And this executes calc.exe. There you go. We just popped calc. And then our final example for the run examples is update dependencies. So this used our start terminal, if you recall. So it pops open a new terminal window. There we go. And since this is running box update, you can see it actually replaced the full path to where I keep box.exe on my computer. And we give it just a second to spool up. It'll run an update. I installed some random packages into this current project just so it would have something to check on. So there is the output of our update command, and the menu stays open in case we want to interact with it or run anything else. And if we're done, we can just close the terminal. So those are the 3 run options, and you can literally run anything you want on your hard drive. By default, the working directory, if I didn't say this earlier, will be the web root of the server. So now, if we look in our open menu, we can see our 2 little contributions we added into here. This open menu always exists and has these default options. So we have our open downloads, which when I click on it, opened up on the wrong monitor. When I click on it, it would open up my download folder, just like I told it to. And then that last option, open VS Code. This is actually a pretty darn handy one. Click on it, and it opens up code in the current directory. And of course, here's my VS Code window, which I just had open a second ago. So there's a ton of functionality and power here. Any kind of command line thing you want to run, I mean, even if it was like git pull, right? You could make a custom icon that you just clicked on it and it runs git pull, in a terminal or synchronously. Any kind of, window that pops up like VS Code or, your IDE, you can open up those. So this is super powerful. And, like this open VS Code one would actually be a pretty darn handy one to declare up at the global level in CommandBox. So, every single server you had on your PC just automatically had an open VS Code menu. And, since it runs in whatever the working directory of that server is, then, you wouldn't even need to make it dynamic. You could just, click open VS Code for whatever server. So lots of options. Get your creative juices flowing there, and happy menuing, everyone. See you next time.